Yo, it's ODB from OLP, your Mini Truckin headquarters. This is issue 89 of Mini Truckin magazine. It's May 99, and we have a lot to talk about with this cover in this issue in general. Basically, it's the 9th cover truck that has Colorado custom wheels on it. Tom Lutz and Kevin Wilson get the credit for this one. Now, Tom Lutz shot 3 covers. This one he shot with Kevin Wilson per the credited feature. He also shot one with Courtney, and he shot one with Mike Shartsis. This is a Firestone Ford Ranger. My understanding was that this was shot at SEMA after SEMA 98. I actually have video of this truck at SEMA 98, courtesy of Steve Nielsen's VHS tape from back in the day. So the other big thing about this issue that we're going to see, and we'll kind of flip over here really quick, is Lance is now the editor. So I didn't mention it last issue because I kind of was waiting to get to this one. But basically, Courtney Halowell, around this time, mid-99, departs this publication, and in conjunction with Steve Stillwell, rest in peace, and Brian McCormick, they go over to lead Street Trucks, right, as that powerhouse team. Now, basically, Courtney was technically the editor of this magazine for 8 issues, only about 3% of the overall. You had Shartsis, obviously, before Courtney, at 32 issues, about 12%, and then Stillwell was 48 issues at 18%. The reason I call that out is because you got to keep in mind, early issues, they were bi-monthly, or quarterly, those type of things. So some of, like Stillwell, really, I think at the end, he would have been, the editor for the longest amount of time, but it was only 48 issues. But Courtney, again, was 8 issues because he left, and that opened the door for Lance, which was fantastic. Lance had been working at getting that role, and I think he does a fantastic job. So we'll, of course, talk about that as we get into this issue, and really the issues coming, forthcoming. So this one's got a jam-packed lineup. So you can see there about 8 features, including Brandon Burrell's Quit Staring. Yep, Brandon goes back to the Sport Compact days. Events you see here, including Booger Bash 98. So we'll talk about that. A famous truck was shot for the cover at that event. And what we see here, Scared of Heights, and then you have Rob Scepter's Isuzu. Now, Rob, rest in peace, was someone that was in Severed, Florida. We'll talk a little bit about that. The crazy thing is again, this truck was in Riding Around the previous month, and I recall talking to Steve Nielsen back in the day on the phone when word was kind of traveling that Rob's truck was going to be featured. And, this would have been shot in November of 98 in Tampa. Looks like right where I've seen other trucks shot. So, word had kind of spread on that. And then you can see here, we do see photo credits belong to Tom Lutz, although in the feature, it does mention Kevin Wilson as well. There, Kimo Sabi was the name of the truck. And again, you can see, it looks like, I think it debuted probably at SEMA 98, and Bewley's Body Works was involved in that one. You see the Traders ad on the left, which we've been accustomed to seeing. Lance does a good job here, I think, in his editorial, kind of just summing up some of what the changes that people have, that have been seen in the magazine. He talks about how Construction Zone is like super popular and people love that aspect of the magazine. And then he also notes that, after a lot of consideration, that, they had talked to other publications, and it had turned out that they, weren't looking to feature the Sport Compact stuff. So that kind of led to, Sport Compacts finding their way here in this publication. So I think that was an important step for Mini Truckin at that time, as we mentioned, of course, on the cover in custom compacts or, Sport Compact cars. That was a huge, leap for the magazine because, again, they weren't mini trucks, but I think we all agree they were definitely Mini Truckin inspired. Again, we're looking at issue 89 of Mini Truckin Magazine, May 99. If you get a chance, hit like, leave a comment. It helps us out. Face Your Fears. So Height Fright. This is Scared of Heights. Always enjoyed this feature. 3.5-inch body drop on this truck. And damn nice one here for sure. You can find Scared of Heights. They're on Instagram. They show us a lot of love. Good people there behind that one. Clint Walker shot this one. And badass Toyota there for sure. We're still not all color, although we're starting to see kind of some more color ads. And who remembers this? Of course, the build antennas. I had one of those for years in the package and wish I still had it. Here you see when they kind of moved into making your house mini trucking inspired. Kind of cool stuff. And stuff is kind of gold now, especially with DeBerti and those guys. They haven't really ramped back up with trends, although he did hint that that was definitely a possibility that he was going to launch stuff. But they've got a lot going on with what they're doing up there in the Carolinas, of course. You can see here, again, some black and white as we flip through these issues. Here's Total Obsession, so a negative camber truck. This was shot by Matt Emery. And this was Edward Scott's truck, real clean one. Plenty of tweed. You can see there, kind of in that era. And you still see it, the CD players installed there in the center console section. You can see the NC logo there on the back. Real clean truck. So we're just plugging away here, trying to get through as many as we can before the end of the year, although I am kind of allowing a few days in between these videos. Here is extensive mod, so the famous Bill Carlton Astro van, 85 Astro. This feature, mentions Cope Kessler, and it mentions Brian Gendro, of course, and we've had both of them on, and I know, I think even Pat Nickel was involved in some of the kind of trading, horse trading, if you will, and how some of these vans kind of made their way from mini trucker to mini trucker. A couple of my old friends, they had saw this at, I think, Nopi 98, and a couple cool things. Number one, he had the extensive, right? So a little play off extensive, the spelling. And then this van, for those that don't know, these are painted on windows. I know most people describe it as the rear windows were painted on. These do look like these were the real windows. Of course, you can kind of see the little guy there. You can see the curvature, kind of, how those windows were sent in. But I believe even the side window, I think those two, and then the ones on the other side, those are painted on. And you'll see when we look at the feature itself, there was really no need for the windows there. You see the rag top. The cool thing is here, Lance Martz and Chris Schmidt. So shout out to Chris. We've had him on before. They shot this thing. This would have been a cool one to talk to Chris about. I think the rear three-quarter shot is key here, right? Because you see how low the van is. You see the rag top. And then this was always, to me, a real good front three-quarter shot. That front end was always super clean to me. Almost looked aftermarket because of the fact that it was kind of like almost reminiscent of a billet grill. This feature may have also run, if anybody knows, an Auto Sound and Security or one of those obscure magazines. I know I had an issue, and I don't know if it was Auto Sound and Security because that one wasn't really obscure, but there was a couple of magazines in that era that I believe they ran this van in because I had it at my desk at work and someone borrowed it. Never saw it again. Here you can see this era of some crazy stereo setups, including, really this thing was a full custom van. I don't recall what happened to this one. If anybody knows if this one ended up, if it's sitting somewhere, if Bill still has it, I don't know. It seems like I've talked to a couple people about it, but I don't recall what it ended up happening to it. I think Copes is etched in our mind, but this one definitely has a place in van history. Shout out to my friend and homie, Matt Torgerson. He was a big van fan, and he had one of the coolest vans built. A lot of fabrication. He went into shortening everything for the suspension, and, he would always, have those photos of vans at his shop and whatnot. Here's Ragtime. So Street Beat, I believe Street Beat is now Legacy. So maybe some of the ownership or the people involved, and many of you guys know them. I've seen their ads a whole bunch on Instagram, and pretty cool. My buddy Josh Ellis, shout out to him. He's got a cool ragtop in his Mazda, and makes for a pretty cool experience cruising. All right, here you go. This is Rob Scepter. Rest in peace, Rob. I didn't technically know Rob at the time. I met Rob probably around this time, back in 98, 99. So we're on May 99. So probably around this time I had met Rob. And Matt Torgerson, which his name is listed, he built this truck for Rob. He did all the work on it. I think even the paint, everything but maybe the interior. At the time, Rob was in Lifestyle. So that does change around this time because Matt had, started Severed Florida, and, they were really good friends. Rob's daughter has reached out in the past and said, hey, thanks for the love you show my dad. And, we don't do it for that reason. We just do it, because Rob was one of our brothers. And, we want to, keep his legacy alive. You can see the interior was pretty crazy. Again, this truck was in riding around the previous month. And then, boom, it's a feature. So I think, that was kind of like a little bit of a tease, a little nod that Lance did. I always thought this was cool. The fenders just looked so good. This paint looked really good with the shaved corners and the billet grill and whatnot. This one, you can see here, we're going to flip the page and there's going to be more to the feature after the ad. And Rob was a motorcycle guy, my understanding, and that's where the Harley Davidson mirrors kind of come in. This was one of the first trucks I can remember. I do recall other trucks in that era that kind of went with that theme with those motorcycle mirrors, but Rob's was the first one I can think of. You can see a lot of billet in here. Tom, that's still in business. You billet and it says billet and acrylic fantasies. Made a lot of that stuff, and this truck is still around in the Tampa Bay area, believe it or not. I think after Rob owned it, it went to one guy, and then that guy sold it to a guy locally, and then that guy had it for a long time, kind of revived it, and then he sold it or traded it maybe to one of his family members, but it's still in the Tampa Bay area. Now, the original, my understanding was, Rob really wanted to get it on the cover, and there were talks of it running on the cover, and for whatever reason, maybe the darker colors or whatnot, I believe, as legend has it, that Lance said, look, if you ever redid the truck and you had some lighter color to it, we might be able to run it on the cover, and obviously you're going to see that in the not too distant future. So just, keep your hats on. We'll be talking about this one a little bit more. Rest in peace, Rob. If you want to see more, you can tap on or search the hashtag Rob Scepter, SCPTOR, or Severed Scepter on Instagram. That's how I kind of curate posts related to Rob and his legacy. He definitely left his mark on the mini trucking scene. Here is Lakeland SummerSlam 98. So this one was done, as you would expect, by Joe Greaves. He was kind of the main go-to guy, still out there doing it, even to this day. And we'll see a lot of trucks here that we're accustomed to seeing in the Florida scene. This thing's super clean. I can't rattle off the Trucksarosa trucks, like who has this one now, but obviously this one reminds me of Mark Kotwitz's truck, and it might be, it's hard to tell to me if this is a long bed, with the sides on it. But Mark Kotwitz, shout out to him. He's one of the Trucksarosa guys out there. This truck, I literally remember seeing cruising in Brandon, Florida, going over to the movie theater at the time that was new. This was like the puzzle truck, I think they referred to it as. And you can see a couple of other old school ones. Kind of the Florida vibe there. For You to Envy. So this was Slammed Impressions, as was Brandon Burrell's CRX. I remember seeing this at Nopi 99. And there's a couple trucks that sometimes run together in my head. And for a while, I thought they were the same truck. But I think someone told me there's another one that was kind of a maroon color. But this one was unique because if you look, I had a topper on my truck with the same carpet kit in it. This one had all the bed treatment kind of done with tweed and whatnot. But I always wondered if they had a cover for this of some sort, because I had this similar setup, and anytime, like mine only had the back window out, didn't have the full walkthrough. But I would imagine potentially getting some carbon monoxide in with this one. But again, there could have just been a big cover that they stuck over this that basically kind of kept everything out. But regardless, I always loved this truck. I thought it was super clean. It's got the turbo wheels on it. The Boyd turbo wheels, super, super clean. And yeah, just with the billet grill on it, I think it was a clean one. And this one was done by the Mini Truckin staff, so don't necessarily know who shot it. I think that truck is still around, or the one that reminds me of it, that's a maroon color, I think is still around. So they kind of run together in my head. The inaugural Beat the Heat River Run. So we saw this Nissan Pathfinder not too long ago in show coverage. Kind of see there, bikini contest. And the Toyota with the topper, classic Mini Truckin style. Again, if you can, leave a comment, so we really appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Kimo Sabe, so Firestone's Ford Ranger. This one, again, was based upon what I understand was a company vehicle, and it was at SEMA 98, showcasing some of the products, and with it, getting some good product placement here on the cover. It was a win-win. That's really what, they were building this thing for. You could see the 4 tanks, the electric valves, which were becoming more popular than the Firestone compressor. Much different than today, obviously. I mean, electric valves are still important. This was coming out of the era of the 1/4-inch lines and the manual valves, right? The little paddle gauges. Nothing crazy on the interior, but again, something that they could bring to SEMA and show off. Get the Colorado Custom steering wheel as well. And this was pretty cool. Courtney got the credit for the write-up. You can see here photography by Tom Lutz and Kevin Wilson. So maybe Kevin Wilson had shot this photo, or, I'm assuming since they gave credit to Tom Lutz for the cover, like maybe Tom only, maybe he did all of the Vegas Salt Flats photos. Don't really know, of course, for sure. But regardless, we like to look here because this is going to give us the facts. And this is Kimo Sabe, the Ford Ranger. Of course, because they're not all in color yet, we get part black and white, part color, but a pretty extensive feature. And these are the Rocky Flat Colorado Custom wheels, 18s and 19s. That was a trend at the time, trying to kind of go with bigger wheel, have a little bit bigger look on the back. And, you'd have guys running kind of odd sizes like that, but 18s and 19s on it. You can see here, highlighting some of their products. Again, Bewley Body Works was involved in this one. And this was an important thing, trying to get, bolt-on kits and things like that would make it easier for enthusiasts to do the stuff at their house. Here we see End of Summer Bash. So shout out to Low Rollers and team. A lot of great folks up there. You can see this is the Toyota that we saw earlier. This is where I remember seeing Lomigo. And for a long time, I just thought that it was up in that area. And I think that it did spend a lot of time up there. You can see Phil Fowler, Chris Schmidt, and Mini Truckin staff. So I'm assuming Courtney. Again, they would do Mini Truckin staff often when folks would leave. They just, I guess, maybe didn't want to credit them. I don't know. But you could see where it mentions Rob Rodell had sold it. Rob talked about selling it. He spent a good amount of time, and I believe there's someone in Alabama that maybe owns the truck based upon comments I've seen. So we'll have to see. But it was, of course, resurrected several years back. And this was a famous show a lot of people like going to. I wish I would have got a chance to go. And again, shout out to Phil Fowler and the team up there. Low overhead. So this one ties into the fact that this thing has a chop on it. Run it low. You got a crazy front 3/4 shot with that wheel turned to the right just a tad, and it kind of gives the perspective of the not only a chop top, but a chop topper too, if you think about it. You got a Frenched antenna and run it low. kind of something a little bit different. You get the ads here, then boom, there's that front 3/4 shot again. Still black and white, as I mentioned. Here you have Maxwell Designs, so Pat Maxwell, shout out to him. This was kind of cool photography by the author. So Courtney Halowell did this one, and you know, Pat is still out there doing the damn thing. You can see some of the old artwork there in his office. I do believe that he travels to folks now and does a lot of paint work and stuff, is what I think Radar told me. And speaking of Radar, you got the Isuzu Pup. And you have Rob Rodell's here, which Rob Rodell's would appear in some of the first street trucks, right? That road trip. Of course, it didn't look like this. It would just body dropped, which was still badass. Don't get me wrong. Always enjoyed that one. And then, of course, he had gotten rid of that one. But again, Rob Rodell and Radar, shout out to those guys. Here you have a Dakota. You can see Trendsetter. So a lot of guys were in Trendsetter. And then here is one, I think there were a couple Blazers. This is one that comes to mind. I think there was another one too. It might have been a 2-door. But this was Pat's Blazer. You can kind of tell just from the style, the graphics, man, so awesome. So clean. He's definitely left his mark on the scene and still doing it. We've got to get him maybe on the podcast one day if he would do it. Here's Sketchpad and a Showfest 99. We started going to Showfest in 2000. And this is the Pier, so I had not seen this in a long time. This was a show that I went to one time, I think maybe in 99 or 2000. And for anybody that doesn't remember, this was the old St. Pete Pier that's since been demolished for whatever reason. Never really kind of followed the politics on that, but I know there was a lot of controversy over the rebuild of the pier, and I guess there's a new one. I haven't even been out there in a long time. But this is Jason Dandler's old Isuzu. Thing was super clean. It was shot for Sport Truck back at Owensboro, Kentucky. Always loved seeing that one. And Geo Tracker, kind of a Chevy Love looking deal. And then the pier was cool. I remember I parked my S10 like down on this side. But some of these, you know, Bill Cox type shows would take place there. So, riding around, again, an important section for the magazine. Kind of showcasing all the different enthusiasts. You know, again, to be able to get your truck in a magazine, especially in this era, you know, would have caused you to run out, I'm sure, buy as many issues as you could. And that was good for the magazine. Shout out to Brandon Burrell. Known Brandon a good amount of time since we started slapping hands at shows and kind of keeping in touch over the years. This was his CRX. I've talked to Brandon about this before. QUTS staring, so quit staring. And with North Carolina having the 8 characters on their plates, that allowed for them to kind of spell things out as they wanted. Super clean. As, you know, even today, Brandon's still doing it. You can see he's balling out there with his mobile phone. Some tweed. And I remember being kind of in middle school and seeing the CRX, and I just always loved these cars. I don't know what it was. I always remember, you know, you could kind of see through the rear there a little bit, and I just thought it was freaking awesome. That's what I wanted for a long time. Booger Bash 98. So this is where Chris Schmidt's Sonoma was shot. We have a behind-the-scene photo. The date on it, I don't know if it's correct. It was like the first weekend in November, I think. Like November 5th might be the date on the photo. That was courtesy of Chris and or Phil Fowler. But this one was a show that a lot of people really liked. And I hate to say that I never made it to this show. Here you can see Ryan Cochran's Mazda. I think this was a different version we saw earlier through the flip-throughs. Chameleon paint, fast bags, you know, bodied. This has the topper you can see on it. We've seen it obviously in show coverage with the topper off, and people would sit in those seats in the back. Pretty cool. Don't know if the truck's still around. If you guys happen to know, let us know. You got the mini Truckin pumpkin. Here you got an old school looking Mazda on some wires. And these setups, you just don't really see much anymore. This one, of course, does have like a tonneau style cover, but you know, you lift it up and you've got the batteries for the hydraulics, but then you have full stereo stuff. And, you know, there's some, I would say, out there, but nothing. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of fresh builds going and doing all that. A lot of guys are kind of keeping things a little bit more stealth. Here you see some crazy piercings. Piercings were huge in that time. I think they're still kind of big, but I think the face tattoos have taken over, man. I've tried to tell Mike to get a couple face tattoos. Maybe get a show on his face. I mean, think about the promotion he could do on that. Just going out to eat, people going, man, what's that on your face? And he could, you know, segue right into EBGD. Eastbound Get Down. Of course, he's trying to rope me in to go out there. I almost wanted to say next month. I guess technically January 2023. Here you have MIC with the back cover. West Side before it became Crew Cut. The Blazer we just recently saw. Of course, the S10 with Bobby Billiard. There you go. Appreciate all the support. Rest in peace, Rob Scepter. And again, this is Courtney's last issue was Courtney, rest in peace. His last issue as editor. Here we're going to pick up with Lance Martz. And again, I do think he did a fantastic job in this magazine over the years. So we'll continue to see that as we do these flip-throughs. Mini Truckin Magazine, issue 89, May 99. Stay on the rise and keep it posted to OLP. Tap that bell notification so you're alerted whenever we post new videos. We got ya. Peace.